Hello, my name is Apple of Doom, and welcome to another Geometry Dash video. Except in today's video, we're not gonna be in Geometry Dash. We're gonna be in Tierlist Maker. Because I saw that apparently there's a tier list right here with a bunch of aspects of creating a level, and I thought it might be a bit of fun to go through it and, I don't know, give my takes on all of this. Well, I saw Tried do this, and I thought, hey, I don't have a video to put out this week, let's just do this for fun. So if you want to see more of this sort of thing from me, I don't know, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Just like sit back, relax, and let's get going. Alright, so the first thing we have here is animations. I'm not sure whether this refers to like the actual animate trigger in game or like your own custom animations. I'd say they're pretty fun. The only time I really did it was in Castle in the Clouds with like the flags, like they were animated, and they turned out awesome. I was really happy with how they looked. It was very difficult to do, but very rewarding. I don't know, I had a bit of fun with that. So I'll put animations there, I guess. I don't think I have ever actually used the in-game animate trigger, because you can do that to change like the custom, like all the monsters and that sort of thing, to do special stuff with them. But yeah, I've never really used that. And I guess the other time you'd use animations is when you're doing like a boss fight or something. Like I've started working on a boss fight back in 2.1, but I never got to finish it. So I guess that was also pretty fun to do because I designed that all up and thought about how all the animations would be and everything. So yeah, I'll put it in the fun tier. All right, background, incredibly fun. I am background carried. I don't know if you guys have actually like realized this yet, but like in every single level I've done, or almost every single level, even since like 2.0, I've loved doing backgrounds. I've loved making them all detailed. I'm pretty much background carried. You look at the backgrounds of any of my levels, they look awesome, and then the block design and foreground and stuff just looks terrible. I absolutely love backgrounds. Some of my favorites to do was definitely Ephemeral, like having that whole space background that's in like the entirety of the level that kind of goes around. That was awesome. I love doing that and like creating all the stars and stuff. I've used stars in a couple levels. I had custom ones I did in Airflow. The Airflow background I remember having a lot of fun doing, even though it's pretty simple. Electro City as well is another level where that whole level was like background carried. That was the only good part of the level. The gameplay sucked, but the background was pretty good for the time because that was like early 2.1. I think the only level where the background really was just like kind of whatever was Reverence, which is kind of crazy because that level should have gone unrated back in like 2.1, but like whatever. But yeah, I'm absolutely background carried. I love just creating my own custom backgrounds and stuff. It adds a lot of, I don't know, atmosphere and vibes into your level. It really sets everything around it, you know what I mean? Like I like to create like a world and an atmosphere first before putting everything into it. So yeah, I absolutely love making the background. Best part of creating any level by far for me. All right, balancing. I guess this goes for more like extreme demon, insane, you know, demons in general, which I don't generally make. Like I'd love to make an easy demon, but like I'm not hugely into making more difficult demon gameplay and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I guess when it comes to balancing gameplay, I don't know. I usually get feedback from a couple of other people and then kind of edit the gameplay around there. You saw it with Castle in the Clouds, like especially that first coin where Colin was just like, yeah, change it to something else. And I was like, sure. And it turned out a lot better. And then, or it was just like minor things when I was doing Freezer Online that like I'd get feedback and just edit it. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't mind doing, I'd just say meh or like whatever. I reckon that's a good thing for that tier. All right, base gameplay. I reckon that's quite fun. That's quite fun. It can be quite time consuming. Like I'll just start making some gameplay and then I'll blink and like 3 hours have passed and it's like, where the hell did all that time go? I spent all this time making this like gameplay and it's just like gone. But I don't know. I feel like gameplay has gotten trickier the more I start to focus on visuals first. And I also tend to flip-flop on how I make gameplay. For example, with Castle in the Clouds, if you watch that series, go watch it. I'll put it in the top right corner right now. Go watch the whole series. I made that in kind of sections and did base gameplay, then deco it up, and then move on, make more gameplay, decorate it. And so I did that as I went along. But whereas with like Freezer Online, I really had to nail the gameplay first before moving on to all the deco. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that point. All I know is that, like, yeah, base gameplay is pretty fun to do. It's pretty fun to do. You can have a lot of fun with it, you know, that's where you determine the difficulty of the level and, like, how all the gimmicks and how it will feel and that sort of thing. I think as time's gone on, this was the point I was trying to make. As time's gone on, especially with these new 2.2 features, it's a lot harder to make base gameplay because you got to think about how everything else will integrate into it. So, like, camera movements, you know, where you want your player to be looking, how the visuals are going to tie into it. And so there's a lot more that goes on in the process of gameplay making now. So, like, I think most people still do just, like, make a layout and then decorate it. You know, it's pretty standard. That's how it's been throughout the entire game's life. But I think we're starting to see it kind of evolve and change and be a lot more integrated into the decoration now, which I don't know if that's as fun. It gets a little more tedious, which is why it's not, like, incredibly fun, but it's still fun. I still like making gameplay. I don't release as many layouts as I probably could be, but, like, it's whatever. All right, block design. Just not having fun. Oh my god, I've never been good at block design. You look at, like, any level I've made since I started in, like, 2.0, I cannot do block design. Like, even with my most latest one, Foreground Online, you look at a lot of the areas that I kind of had to rush, and the block design is so basic and boring. And I look at other levels, like, you look at anything Knots has done, like Get Happy, for example, has been a huge inspiration for me. You look at the block design, it's super detailed in depth. Vito has, like, incredible layering and stuff, like all this detail in the block design, and just, like, I don't do that. It just doesn't click for me. I don't know why. Let me know if you guys have more fun doing block design than backgrounds, because I know these two, from what I've seen online, these two are usually, like, flipped for everyone else, but no, I love making backgrounds, and block designs just does not come naturally to me. I think it also comes from the fact that when I think of block design, I think too literal. For example, if you look at Castle in the Clouds, the whole idea is that it is a castle and it has castle things in it. So the gameplay is, you know, all these bricks and tables and barrels and things and crates and whatnot that you jump on and all that sort of thing. I think very literally, and a lot of Geometry Dash block design tends to be quite abstract in a sense. You know, it's like they're not physical objects, they're kind of abstract ideas. And so I guess you kind of see the same sort of thing in, like, Sonic the Hedgehog, you know what I mean? If you look at, like, Sonic levels, it'll be like casino themed, for example, but I guess the block design of that is, like, real abstract and not like you're actually in a casino. It's different. And I just struggle to get that abstract kind of thought out. I'm moving my hands as if you can see them. I probably look insane. But yeah, block design doesn't come naturally to me, but, like, that's okay. That's fine. Camera movements, I'd say quite fun. I do, like, 90% of my camera movements when I do the background, but there's so much you can do with the camera. It's incredible to understand what you can pull off. Like, in Freezer Online, the transition between the starting area and path Z, how you, like, the camera whole shifts and then you pull out of, like, a monitor, and then you got all these, like, TVs and stuff just set up in a row. That's awesome to do. I love doing that. Camera movements have changed the game for the better, honestly. Like, it's just a completely different game now. Camera movements is, like, their whole different art form. One of my favorite transitions that it was done using, you know, trick camera movements has to be the one in Next Cab Soon, where you also kind of jump out of the thing. It goes like, I guess that's more scale triggers as well. But, like, I don't know, that's just my point. It's like you can do so much with the camera now that it's great. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. Like, just having static cameras where you can have certain things move within a set frame and stuff. Oh, it's awesome. I absolutely love it. Composition. Composition's an interesting one. I think this is trying to talk about, like, the layout of things on screen, so what you're directly looking at on screen. I tend not to think about it that much. Freezer Online is where I really started to look at it. For example, I've got the kind of overlay over the top that has, like, the extra details and stuff, and I guess it incorporates both all the mid-ground, foreground, background and stuff. I guess when you've got a static camera and you're focusing on stuff, composition matters a lot more. I think one level that does composition really well has got to be aperture. Like, if you look at the beginning, the way that's all laid out and the layers of things is awesome. I just don't tend to think about it, although I should. This is something I really should focus on doing a lot more. So maybe on my next level, I'll try and focus on a lot more. I'll put it in fun. I assume hierarchy also kind of comes into this, where hierarchy is basically like what elements stand out to you and what don't. It's a very, you know, typical kind of art term. And so sorting out what visual details are important to the player and what kind of aren't is a really interesting and in-depth process. And I feel like Geometry Dash is unique in this aspect because you really got to, like, focus on making the gameplay readable, but also also making sure that the cool extra details you've added are also visible, because there's two different ways you can kind of experience a Geometry Dash level. The first is actually playing it for yourself, and when you're playing it for yourself, you need to be able to read things and understand things in a gameplay sense a lot more above all the other visuals, right? But when you're watching it, you're not really focused on how the game is playing, you're focused on what you're looking at on a screen. And so I guess when you're talking about composition, yeah, you got to make it so that both of these aspects can work simultaneously without one detracting from the other. So people call some levels like TikTok bait. Like I know Skeletal Shenanigans has been called like TikTok bait because it looks so good, but the gameplay is quite difficult. I thought that struck a good balance, but like there's a lot of other levels like that where they've sacrificed gameplay for visuals or visuals for gameplay or whatever. And I think composition is just kind of, I don't know, incorporates balancing both of it. Weird little tangent, but like, whatever. All right, visual bug fixing. If you have seen any of my streams, you'd know that this drives me absolutely insane. Actually, if you watch my Castle in the Cloud series, you'd know this drives me absolutely insane. You know what, we're gonna add a new tier. Drives me insane. Visual bug fixing. This is really, really important, okay? Don't let me understate this. This is probably one of the most important things you can do. For example, when I released Freezer Online, it was visually pretty broken. I've talked about this in another video, but I'll chuck it up here again. There was a lot of glitches and bugs moving between things and that sort of stuff because I didn't have time to flesh it out. And because of that and another number of other things, it didn't quite get legendary, which was disappointing, but it still got epic and, you know, people still love the level. So I'm happy about that. But that's because I didn't focus a lot on visual bug fixing. It is so vitally important, but you tend to get stuck into the minute details of things, trying to, you know, pinpoint the tiniest little things, that it just drives me nuts. It drives me up the wall. I actually lose all my sanity when I try to like fix something and then you fix something and something else breaks. Like, this is especially important now that we have shaders, because shaders break in new, interesting and unique ways, and it drives me up the goddamn wall. So yeah, visual bug fixing, that goes in the drive me insane tier, because yeah, it's important, but it drives me nuts. All right, the description, that's meh, whatever. I don't really care about the description. I use the description just for like a neat little sentence or two to kind of tie things together. I know Audiovisual, I've seen on his streams, he tends to really focus in on it and make something that really, you know, is kind of punchy and stands out, so that like when someone plays the level and they look at the description, they go like, oh yeah, you know, that kind of ties the theme together or something like that. But for me, it's just like, yeah, you can do that, but at the same time, I also like to include what I've fixed up in previous updates. For example, I've done that with Freezer Online, where I've gone like, you know, fixed up XY bug, that sort of thing. It's just something I don't really focus on. I much prefer focusing on like the name of the level or something like that. The end screen, this is fun. A bird just hit my window. I don't know if that came out in the microphone. That scared the living daylights out of me. What the hell? All right, end screen is going in quite fun. I love a good end screen. I've been doing end screens since like 2.1. They haven't been the most in-depth things. They kind of started as an afterthought, like, oh, if everyone else is doing it, then I should. But like, I've come to kind of like really appreciate them. And in my next level, I have an excellent idea of what I want to do for the end screen. So I hope you guys subscribe and keep watching the videos as they come out, because my next level is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a bit of fun. All right, Foreground. Where should I put Foreground? I don't enjoy Foreground quite as much as Background. Foreground is kind of hard to pull off because it can obscure gameplay. It is really difficult to pull it off in a way where it doesn't look awkward. I think a good example of when I've done an interesting Foreground that's worked really well, in my opinion, you know, gassing up my own levels. Yeah, look at this guy. Is in Freezer Online, the beginning section where you have the kind of, you know, the electricity pylons kind of go in front of the camera. That was a cool Foreground. You can do a lot with the Foreground. I just don't tend to. I put it in fun. I'd say it's fun to put together a good Foreground. Gameplay bug fixing. Drives me insane. Oh my god. I feel like a common theme with these two, just bug fixing in general. I think with gameplay, it's a little different. Like, visual bug fixing drives me a lot more up the wall because, you know, there's a lot more you need to look out for visually. Whereas gameplay is a lot more about the feeling of it, I guess. It's kind of like a different sense. But with gameplay bug fixing, you could be like, oh, this orb is slightly off. I'm gonna move it so that the level plays a bit better. And then you do it, and then it's just thrown the entire rest of the level off, and then you have to refix everything. Like, I know that was a big problem with Ephemeral, where I initially had like the first speed trigger was like just off, so I was like, oh yeah, I'll move that to the left a bit, and then the entire rest of the level felt incredibly off. So it can be an incredibly furious thing, but this is also one of those things where it's like, it's incredibly important. You cannot ignore gameplay fixing. If there's a problem with your level and you've gone through some playtests and they've been like, yeah, this gameplay doesn't feel quite right, fix it. Fix it. I don't care what. Fix it. Do it. All right, intro. The only time I've really done an intro was with Freezer Online, and people love that. I was really happy with how that turned out. I still really wish I had time to like animate it all, but like at this point, I can't be bothered. It's so much work. It's like genuinely so much work. But intros don't have to be long. Like when I think intros, I think just like a quick, brief introduction into the level and its ideas. So I'd say intro is like, it's meh, it's whatever. You can have an intro, you can not have an intro, it doesn't really matter. I feel like pre-drop, post-drop would be more interesting to rate on this, but there's no real thing like that. Level name, incredibly fun. This, I love coming up with a name for my level. Sometimes I will go into a level and already have like the name for it, because it really sets the tone for what you're about to experience, right? So with Castle in the Clouds, when I was trying to name that, I spent a couple weeks getting some feedback off, you know, like Reddit and my YouTube polls and all that sort of stuff, trying to figure out what would be a good name for it. And then I just ended up combining a bunch of names to come up with something that's both unique and explains the level in an interesting way. I think it's incredibly important to come up with like a unique level name so that when people search up your level, they can be immediately like, yes, it's that one. Like, I feel like I nailed that with Freezer Online, because no one else has named a level anything like that. Whenever I say Freezer Online, people are immediately like, yes, it's that random level that I played. And I'll be like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, you really gotta come up with something that stands out. And so I really like doing that. That's a really fun part of the whole process of creating a level to me. Moving objects. Moving objects is an interesting one. I do believe that having moving elements on the screen is vitally important. I just don't do it. It's very tedious. You know what? I'm gonna have a new thing that's like tedious. This is changing from boring to tedious. This is tedious. To make a level visually interesting, you need to have a lot of moving elements, whether they're rotating or scaling or like moving, fading in and out, etc., etc. And it is important that you have them. I don't know. It's kind of like a get stimulated type thing, but like, it's true. You need to have like different moving elements to keep a player engaged in your level. And so I always struggle with that, because I really like making like a set scene of something, and having moving elements in it like really is quite annoying to deal with, but it's important. It's just tedious. It's just tedious. It doesn't drive me insane, but it's just tedious. You know what? I'm gonna move drives me insane up here, because these two both important, but drive me kind of nuts. There we go. They're kind of similar. Optimizing. Oh god. Once again, I did this on stream for Freezer Online, and if you haven't watched my streams, don't forget to, subscribe and ring that bell so you know when I'm streaming, because I've been doing it quite a lot recently. I've been trying to beef it up a bit. And optimizing levels drives me up the goddamn wall, because you basically have to figure out what causes lag for devices that are a lot less powerful than the one you're using. At least that's how it is for me. I'm sure on mobile, mobile players, they're better at optimizing because they're used to like the specs of their phone or whatever. But like, figuring out what needs to change and what's causing lag is a massive pain within itself. There are more tools now to use, like the trace in out feature and the show info label, both of which I did shorts on. So I'll put them up in the top right corner if I can. I think I can. But yeah, it drives me up the wall, because you'll do something and you'll be like, why is this causing lag? And you just have no clue. You just have no clue. You just have no clue what you're doing half the time. Maybe that's just a me problem, but like, yeah, it drives me nuts. Orb and portal decoration. Not having fun. Not having fun with this. If you've seen any of my levels, this is something I desperately struggle with. And I usually just default to putting like a piece of glow behind it or something. Like, I suck at this. I know there's so many creators that do such interesting creative things with like their orb deco, and it's a skill, right? Because you gotta make it so that it's unique and interesting, but at the same time, the orb is still readable. You don't just go up to an orb and go like, oh, what is this gonna make me do? I don't know if it's gonna jump me up or flip my gravity or what. It's a balancing act. I don't have fun with it at all. Planning, theme, and part, incredibly fun. Both before I create a level and while I'm creating a level, I'm thinking about the theme, I'm thinking about how I want it to play, I'm thinking about the visuals, and I absolutely love to gather reference images, have a bunch of reference material next to me, so I know exactly what I'm doing while I'm building stuff, you know? It's just, I always struggle with having ideas in my head and putting them to like paper, you know, like I could have an idea for a song, for example, in my head, and then as soon as I try to make it, it just sounds like the worst thing you've ever heard. But when it comes to Geometry Dash, I can like plan a theme, I can plan a part, and I'll just be like, yep, I want it done this way, this way, this way, and then I'll do it, and then I'll think, oh no, I think this needs to change, and then I change it, and it's awesome. I don't know, I just have a lot of fun with this. I don't know how else to describe it. Polishing, I'd say this is tedious. It doesn't drive me insane. I feel like a lot of this, like the visual bug fixing, gameplay fixing, and optimizing is arguably polishing. But I guess polishing, I'd put it in the tedious sense because a lot of it will be like adding minute little details, you know, adding little blips and bloops that do flashes. I know audiovisual has like a big focus on polishing and just adding like minute little details that really like add to the whole theme of the level. But for me, I just find it so annoying. It's so annoying. It doesn't drive me crazy, but it's annoying. All right, pulses. I don't actually tend to add that many pulses in my level. I'd just say meh, whatever. Sure, I could have like pulses go in the background. I generally don't like to put them on spawn loops. If you look at my like trigger work, I really do like to control when things happen, like exactly when things happen. I tend to be quite precise when it comes to my pulses. So they're just like whatever for me. Sometimes I add them, sometimes I don't. I don't think Freezer Online has any. Castle in the Clouds didn't really have any. Ephemeral did absolutely have them, and I think a couple of my older 2.1 levels had them, but most of the time I generally just kind of whatever. Releasing the level? Yeah, baby, releasing it and finally letting everyone else play it is such a good feeling. Because I guess it's different for me because I make videos about my levels. So a lot of the people who follow me kind of already know what they're going to expect, right? And so they get to finally like experience the level for themselves and don't have to watch me play it. And I'm really lucky that like all of you guys that watch my videos and, you know, like, subscribe, like, comment, join my live streams, you're all very supportive of the stuff I do. And so whenever I release the level, it's just awesome seeing everyone be like, yo, this is sick. And I'm just like, hell yeah, glad people agree with me. No, releasing the level, incredibly fun. Song cuts, tedious, very tedious. I had to do this a lot for Freezer Online just because of the nature of the level. And so I ended up having a lot of bugs with like the song. It's just song triggers in general. Song triggers in general, very tedious in how they work. Sometimes you place one in and it just wouldn't work and you'd be like, oh, why isn't this working? I'm gonna set it to a spawn trigger, and then you spawn trigger and it still doesn't work, and it's just like, come on man, just work, please. Song cuts, they're just tedious. Song searching, I'd say it's fun. I usually think of a song before I make a level. I don't like having a theme and then being like, oh, what song should I pair with this? I prefer to actually be like, oh, here's a song. I reckon these visuals and these ideas would work well with it. I work it that way around. I have done song searching before for like, I've got a number of unreleased levels, and some of them I've been like, you know, I need a specific vibe for this, let me find a song, and then it's just been like oh, it's been pretty fun. I don't know, on Newgrounds you tend to find the most random stuff from people who've made like their first ever song to like experienced producers who are just like on there randomly. So I don't know, it's always a grab bag. It's always interesting to see what people come up with. So I'd say it's pretty fun. Sound effects, they're also fun. Sound effects can be fun. The only time I really did sound effects was in Freezer Online. I don't generally like adding sound effects to classic levels, but the way I implemented them in Freezer Online was not during the gameplay, it was only during various cutscenes and that sort of thing, and they worked excellently. I love doing them. They sounded awesome, and the sound effect library is so diverse. You can like find so much stuff in there. It's a little weird how it's sorted out. Sometimes you look for one thing in one folder but it's in another, but like overall I find it pretty fun. Structuring, I don't structure. I actually do not structure. I'd say I actively avoid structuring actually, because for me structuring is more important in more stereotypical, I guess not stereotypical, but very classic Geometry Dash levels. You think like Stereo Madness, that has structuring. 1.9 levels, they have structuring. I don't tend to think about okay, I guess I do care about structuring. I'll put it in the tedious. So for me, when I think about structuring, I think about structuring in the gameplay section. I don't ever do structuring when it comes to gameplay because I know for a fact it will change later on. I prefer to have very open sort of gameplay and then come up with the block designs and that sort of stuff kind of after that. And so structuring kind of ties in more into block design for me than it does for gameplay. And so, I don't know, I don't have a lot of fun with it. I prefer to just like build whatever, and if it looks good, it looks good. I guess it's more of a composition thing than a structuring thing. I don't know. The way these are all labeled is like up for interpretation, but man, there's like thunder going on. I hope that picked up on the microphone. That was loud. All right, transitions. Also tedious, very tedious. Transitions can be fun. Like a great example, as I've already mentioned before, the one in Freezer Online between the first section and Path Z, how it comes out of the TV. That looks awesome, but oh my god, it's tedious. Jeez, it's tedious. I generally didn't really do transitions up until late 2.1 or like 2.2, that kind of stuff. I never really included them, just because a lot of the time they can obscure gameplay, and I don't really like that. I prefer to have everything kind of seamlessly flow from one to the other. So I don't really focus a lot on transitions, but when I do it, it's just annoying to do. So yeah, tedious, here it goes. Trigger work. I feel like I need a new one that's like fun but maddening. I could add a new row above. This is fun, but also drives me insane. That's trigger work, because I can get into like a flow state when I do triggers where I'm just like number, connects to thing, does thing, boom, boom, boom. And I get into the flow of things, and I'm able to like think, oh, this is how this is gonna affect it, and this is how this is gonna affect it. And then you run into one problem, and then none of your triggers work, and you're like, why the hell is that happening? You can do a lot with triggers. They're incredibly fun to work around. I feel like I got different experiences with different types of triggers and that sort of thing, but it also just drives me nuts, because like you'll run into one problem and then the problem's like cascade. So you really got to get it right the first time or you're screwed. And I don't know, I like testing triggers, like going through play testing and then checking it and making sure it all works. It can be rewarding, it's just painful. All right, next we've got verifying. It's whatever. By the time I actually verify a level, it's like I've play tested the level so many times, it's like it doesn't feel like a level anymore. And so verifying it, it's just like whatever. It's just a means to release the level, which is the fun part. So it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And finally, VFX. Now this is an interesting one. Where am I putting this? VFX. What does VFX refer to? Is it just like effects? Because like I've considered myself more of an effect creator for a while now. Like even back in like 2.1, Reverence was a pretty cool effect level I did that was inspired by like Abstract Dark and like Darwin and all those sort of creators. I'm just going to take this to mean like effects. I think doing effects in the level is fun. You know, just like pulling off different kind of visual feats. Like I'd consider the 3D depth effect in the block design in the first part of Freezer Online to be like VFX. I'd consider that VFX. I guess VFX can be considered shaders, which shaders can do a lot for the level. Like also with Freezer Online, the like aperture tilt shift effect type thing, that's awesome. I don't know, it can be very rewarding. So I'll put that in fun. And all right, that's pretty much it. I wish there was a couple more things added to this, but like I've been recording for like, this is taking me 40 minutes. Oh my God, where's my time gone? I've just been yapping this whole time. I think I can get rid of that row because that doesn't really mean anything. This is my tier list. This is what I think of everything. I find a lot of it fun, and a lot of the ones that are down here, it's not fun just because it's tedious or like repetitive or boring or whatever. Yeah, those are my thoughts on everything. Please let me know down below what your thoughts on each of the parts of the creating process are like, because you know, creating levels is different for everyone. And so, for example, I saw Triad's video on this before making mine, and a lot of the stuff I've put here, he's like absolutely flipped. Yeah, please let me know. Comment down below what you think creating is like for you. What do you have fun doing? If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. This was a bit of a different thing. I don't know, it's just a bit of filler while I'm still working on building Freezer Online. So if you don't want to miss one of those streams, make sure to ring the bell so that you know when I'm live, because I've been trying to go live quite often recently. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.